Business is not like a battlefield. You die or I win. Even if you die, I may not win. Right? So it's about fun.
Well, there you go. Business can be fun, and that is some sage advice coming from China's richest man, Jack Ma. And he knows what it's like to be poor and fail exams, and yet he's willing to share the secrets of his success with you. He made his fortune setting up Alibaba, an e-commerce monster which has nearly twice the amount of users as the American online marketplace Amazon. It is a great achievement when you consider once upon a time he couldn't even get a job at KFC.
The future of shopping is exciting. Okay, it's not. But online retail is big business. I mean, Amazon's owner is the richest man in the world. But he's got competition. Introducing China's master of online retail, Jack Ma.
I'm 100% made in China.
He's the founder of Alibaba, the largest e-commerce business in China. Responsible for more than half of all e-commerce retail sales in the country, and providing a direct link between Chinese factories and global entrepreneurs. He's making it easier for Chinese companies to trade with the rest of the world. Set up 24 years ago by this former teacher, he is now schooling the world on how to do business.
We believe customer number 1, employee number 2, shareholder number 3.
Sure, there have been some setbacks.
I applied for Harvard for 10 times rejected. I went for a police, they said, no, you're not good. KFC came to China, come to my state, got rejected.
Well, the Colonel must be crying into his bucket, because this guy is now the richest man in China. With 35 billion in the bank, and with hundreds of millions more people using Alibaba than Amazon, it looks like the future of e-commerce could be made in China.
Well, we have a great panel for you, as always. Ross Feingold is an analyst on US-Asia relations, joins us from Taiwan. Marianne Rousson is a journalist, and she writes about all things tech. And finally, Chris Veal. He runs a shipping company which helps UK businesses import products from China. Let's start with Marianne Rousson. Marianne, so for those of our viewers who have not used Alibaba, what does it do?
So Alibaba is it's like an online shopping site that is not dissimilar to eBay, but it essentially takes everything that you could possibly want to buy from any factory in China and basically puts it there on an online platform for you to buy whatever you want.
But this
is possible.
It's different to Amazon in the sense that it's for people who want to import a load of these things from China and then resell them. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So you can buy as an individual and you can buy small quantities, or you can buy make absolutely huge orders and use it as a wholesale business.
Let's have a look at this from a shipping point of view, right? Chris, you help customers in the UK who have found what they want on Alibaba to bring it over to this country and to sell it, right?
Absolutely. Alibaba's an entrepreneur's dream, really. It's like a sweet shop for people that are looking to make some extra money. You can find a supplier as easy as you could ever find anyone manufacturing a particular product that you're looking for, import it very easily. That's what we do. And if you wanted to sell it on somewhere like Amazon, then you wouldn't even need to touch the products or meet your customer or your supplier. It's a fantastic way of doing business.
So in effect then, as you were telling me before the program, Alibaba and Amazon, they dovetail. Just take us through that again.
Yeah, they dovetail beautifully. You can find a supplier on Alibaba. You can have it shipped simply. You don't need to worry about customs. We deal with those kind of things. And then they can have the goods delivered directly into an Amazon warehouse who sell the goods to a customer. So you wouldn't, in effect, have to see the goods, meet the customer, or meet the supplier to make some money. So it gives you a fantastic opportunity.
Do you know if any of your customers are making serious profits?
Absolutely. We've got loads of customers that started as side businesses and effectively were on their way to work, posting their goods out to their customers through the post office, and now they've given up their day job and moved to the country and they're making this their full-time business. So it's certainly pretty lucrative.
Let's go to Ross Feingold now. Thank you for that, Chris. So Ross, we just looked at the difference between Amazon and Alibaba. Is there something you want to add there, some analysis?
Well, one of the things that was so innovative about Alibaba when it began was if you were a person who's now Chris's customer, 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, you have no way of getting in contact with China. You have no way of speaking with a factory, with a manufacturing partner or supplier in China, no way to talk to them about the product specs. Alibaba has fulfilled this role of being in the middle and bringing together people who otherwise, on either side of the transaction, would have had enormous barriers to do business. And we think of this as applying to maybe the small and medium enterprise, but in many cases it also applies to larger companies as well, who now have this platform to import goods. Whereas before, even a larger company, they might have had to put people on the ground in China, and that would have been beyond the resources of a small or medium enterprise to put resources on the ground in China. And Alibaba has brought them together. And looking back, it all seems so simple, but they were the first one to do this and scale it up.
Well, that's a really interesting point. Let's go back to Mary Rousson now. Later in the program, we're going to find out from Jack Ma that basically what he does is he looks for a challenge and then he finds a solution. He says the bigger the challenge, the greater the solution, and of course, the greater the profit. How is it that Jack Ma spotted this gap in the market?
He was always a big fan of the internet, and this is somebody who doesn't have any business background, doesn't have any sort of technological or computing background, but he sort of fell in love with the internet, and he started wondering why he couldn't see Chinese goods for sale on the internet. And he was just thinking, how on earth can we get Chinese goods out abroad? And we should try and have some sort of website. And so first of all, he started a venture which was just trying to sort of build websites for Chinese businesses. And that went okay, but then local telecoms companies felt threatened by him, so they sort of started up their own rival, and so he had to abandon that one. And then eventually he managed to sort of work on Alibaba and then basically try and do the same thing again, but instead make it a marketplace whereby just basically loads of Chinese companies could just say, we make this one thing, please come and buy this one thing from us, and we'll ship it to you. And he just changed it.
Yeah, you're talking about shipping it to you. The thing is, you've got agents all over China's ports, and otherwise you'd be lost without them, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. There has to be someone on the ground that's going to be able to contact them.
What's their role then? How do they help you?
So they would contact the suppliers directly. So our customers would find their supplier on Alibaba, do a deal, and then let us know. We'd then make contact with the supplier through our agents in China and ship the goods to them as easily as possible.
Okay, let's go back to Ross for a moment. I want to talk about Jack Ma and Alibaba's relationship with the Chinese government. What is the relationship, first of all, and how does he keep them off his back?
Well, it's not necessarily a question of keeping them off the back. It's working within the environment. China has its own unique political system. It differs from our systems in the West, obviously. And the Communist Party does run the country. There is no opposition, and that's a fact of life when you do business. And that would include even having the party cell inside the company. It's standard. It's the law that they have to have a Communist Party cell inside the company.
Whoa. So wait, they have a Communist Party cell inside the company. What does that mean?
Well, that means that there are employees who take a leadership role, just like a company might have other types of social organizations. But in China, it's a party organization.
Well, yeah, but you don't have Republican
employees.
and Democrat organizations embedded inside. So Microsoft, for example, I mean, they may all be Democrats, but...
No, in fact, in the United States, we would normally say that employees are free to do this kind of activity, but you can't do it during office hours, and you can't use company resources to do it. But in China, they're going to have a Communist Party cell inside a large company, and he has to work with them.
Okay, well, look, the thing is, Jack Ma says he was actually inspired by his visits to America and some parts of American culture, particularly the movie Forrest Gump, whose main character was determined and tenacious. And he also loves the English language.
Yeah, I don't know why at 12, 13 years old, that time I suddenly fell in love into the language, the English. And there's no place you can learn English at that time. There's no books, English books. So I went to the Hangzhou Hotel, now called Hangzhou Shangri-La Hotel, because that was the hotel can receive the foreign visitors. So every morning for 9 years, I showed them around as a free guide, and they taught me English.
Oh, interesting. Let's go back to Marianne Rousson. Marianne, I've seen him with various Western television stations, business channels, and so on. He always performs really well. I mean, he's got an open perspective, hasn't he?
So he's always been, very, very keen on the West. And, he became an English teacher. He sort of struggled with mathematics. And obviously, mathematics is one of the prized sort of subjects in the sort of Chinese culture. Without mathematics and science, you can't go very far. But he has just done it his own way. So I think he sort of realized that doing his own thing sort of works for him. And he's kind of just gone with it.
And his command of English is very helpful.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he has good relations with people. He's clearly able to charm Western journalists. But there is a thorny issue, isn't there? And that is the issue of counterfeit goods. China has long been recognized as the engine of the global counterfeiting industry. 80% of the world's counterfeit goods come from China. Counterfeit goods account for 12.5% of China's total exports, apparently, and over 1.5% of its GDP. In 2017, the global losses suffered from online counterfeiting were estimated at $323 billion. And yet, tackling counterfeit products, an ongoing issue for Jack Ma and Alibaba. Here's how he approaches it.
Situations like a fake products counterfeit, we've been fighting for 70 years since the day we set up. We know this is the war fighting against the human greedy. You can never finish the war by a single company.
Back to Ross Feingold in Taiwan. Ross, do you think that Jack Ma and Alibaba actually taking the counterfeit situation seriously?
I think it's fair to say that in recent years, the company has improved its efforts substantially to crack down on counterfeiting products that are on the platform. But it is an enormous problem. So as soon as you knock off one counterfeiter from the platform, there are going to be others that immediately spring up. And unfortunately, it does fall onto the people whose goods are being ripped off that they have to take action. So whether they're going to contact Alibaba directly or engage a lawyer in China, this takes time and it might take money. And some companies will find this process to be extremely challenging. You're going to have to show that you actually do own the goods.
Yeah.
Some people design a product, they start to manufacture it, they might outsource it to a manufacturing partner in China, but they've actually never registered their intellectual property. So even if it's your design and you've actually been selling it in the marketplace, but you haven't gone to the trouble of registering it with an authority somewhere in the world, when you go to Alibaba and say, my product is being counterfeited, Alibaba is going to say, show us the proof that you own it. So it is a multi-step process, and especially with smaller companies, they're not in a position really to challenge it in an effective way, which is unfortunate because then the goods will continue to be counterfeited.
And another problem is, as Jack Ma pointed out, here's something he said in 2016. The problem is that the fake products today, they make better quality, better prices than the real product. The exact same factories, the exact same raw materials, they just don't use the name. And that takes me over to you for a moment here, Chris. Your customers, they come to you, they want to bring things across to the West to sell into this market. Do they care if these things are counterfeit? And have you noticed any trends over the last couple of years?
Well, I certainly think they care if they're counterfeit, if Border Force or any of the customs agencies are stopping the goods, seizing them, destroying them. I think everyone has to take some ownership for trying to prevent this. And I know that at the borders, the government are doing everything they can to prevent that. And I think importers should be making sure that the documents are in place, so there's certificates of authenticity to make sure that the goods that you are buying are legitimate.
You know what? This sort of takes us neatly into the whole US-China trade war, which has come to a head last September. Have a listen.
When you have $375 billion in trade deficits and then many billions of dollars in other liabilities of all different types, you have to do something about it. We are the piggy bank to the world. We've been ripped off by China.
Well, we know where that led, and China's most successful businessman, Jack Ma, has some strong thoughts on trade wars.
Trade war is the most stupid thing in this world. Trade is for the peace. Trade is to communicate. There will be no trade deficit issue in the next 20 years because of technology. Nobody can stop the free trade.
The strange thing is, these two men met back in 2017, just before it really reached its peak, and they actually appeared to get along pretty well.
We had a great meeting, and a great entrepreneur, one of the best in the world, and he loves this country, and he loves China.
Two, I think China loves America.
Back to Ross for a moment. Ross, we've got some tension, put it mildly, between China and the United States. What role can people like Jack Ma have in this?
Well, one thing he could do is make it more clear how American companies profit from the U.S.-China trade. And that's one of the big tensions here is a lot of people in the United States, and certainly President Trump and his team, feel that China exports to the United States. Manufacturing no longer takes place in the United States. So these good manufacturing jobs have moved to China. The products, the factories are all in China. And that it's China that's profiting, and they cite the trade deficit as evidence of this. So to use the example of Chris and his clients, obviously those are local companies in the United Kingdom that are making money. So for Jack Ma, to further his message that trade is good, should be to really explain how the foreign companies, how Americans and American companies benefit from the Alibaba platform.
Yeah, that's possibly a good strategy. I mean, Marianne Rousson, you were telling me before the show that it's important that in negotiations with the Chinese, you have to make sure that they keep face, they're proud, and they don't want to be exposed as weak on the public stage.
Yeah, I mean, everything is in Chinese culture is all about respect and understanding. So, they would say, we respect you, Trump, as the leader of America. But similarly, we require you to respect as China, especially since we've got, the world's manufacturing hub in our country. So, we need each other. We need you. We would very much like to trade with you, but you cannot require us to prostrate ourselves in front of you.
But do they understand that President Donald Trump is looking for reciprocity? He believes that it's not been a level playing field for years, and now that China's richer, it has to be much more even.
Yes, I think they realize there's only so far they can go. They know that they know they won't be able to string it out forever. They do want a resolution because, the Chinese culture is about capitalism, right? They want to get back to making the money. This is a waste. And, they'll be hearing their businesses saying, we want to get on with making money, please. So that's in their best interest. They don't want that to go away. But at the same time, it's a face issue. They don't want to feel like they have to bow down before the white man. They want to feel like, they feel as if, well, you didn't notice all these additional fees and tariffs. Okay, fine, now you have. We'll work out a new deal. But we'll work out a mutually beneficial
well,
deal.
That's what Trump says. Trump says all the previous leaders were caught napping at the wheel, and it's not going to happen.
Which they were.
Well, there you go. So Trump's saying it's not going to happen on his watch. Marianne Rousson and Chris Veal and also Ross Feingold, thank you very much. We're going to move into the second part of our show now, which is basically about career advice and Jack Ma's philosophy. He started Alibaba in his early 30s, and 20 years and $35 billion later, he's keen to share his wisdom for success. Now, depending on your age, you're going to find this next report either incredibly helpful or incredibly annoying.
Before 20 years old, be a good student. 25 years old, make enough mistakes. Don't worry. You fall, you stand up. You fall, you stand up. Enjoy it. Any mistake is an income, is a wonderful revenue for you. Before 30 years old, follow somebody. It's not which company you go, it's which boss you follow. It's very important. A good boss teaches you differently. From 30 to 40 years old, you have to think very clearly when you're working for yourself. When you're 40 to 50 years old, you have to do all the things that you are good at. Don't try to jump into the new area. It's too late. But when you are 50 to 60 years old, work for the young people. Because young people can do better than you. So rely on them, invest on them, making sure they're good. So When you are over 60 years old, spend time for yourself. On the beach, sunshine, right? It's too late for you to change normally. This is my advice to the young people.
I told you it might wind you up if you're a little on the older side. Let's bring in our final guest now, Steve Tappan, a renowned business coach who has worked in China for over 10 years. He trains some of the top CEOs in that country and is giving you the benefit of his wisdom now for free. Steve, I think it's for free, isn't it, Steve? Just tell us, what's your experiences in China? And I know you've met Jack Ma, with particular emphasis on that.
Yeah, so my experience in China is I've worked in China for about 12 years. I was a friend of the China Entrepreneur Club, and I've coached about 30 of the top 50 Chinese companies in terms of their next CEOs, and I've got a good background with Jack Ma.
And where would you put Jack Ma in that sort of pantheon of Chinese business leaders?
Yeah, so my sense is that there's different types of CEO, both in the West and in China. And in China, for me, he's what I call a missionary CEO. So he's on a mission to work with Alibaba, and he's a fiery character. You know, he's got a lot of passion. He's also got very strong integrity. So when Alibaba's had ups and downs, he often steps in and makes decisive calls. So this type of CEO is quite rare, maybe less than 5%, and they're very distinctive in their personality.
I know you said in your bio here, it says you're the first Westerner to gain access to the China Entrepreneur Club. Why is that important?
Yeah, so the China Entrepreneur Club is basically a group of over 50 of China's top CEOs, and it includes companies like Lenovo and Fosun. And Jack Ma is the chairman of the China Entrepreneur Club. And this group of people actually look after 4% of China's GDP. So 4% of China's GDP is looked after by this group. And I was the first Westerner to be given access to them. And I wrote a book called The Secrets of Chinese CEOs, and I interviewed 90% of them. But also I've got my own views, which are probably quite controversial, but I'd be happy to share them about what might happen at Alibaba.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So basically, Alibaba has been very successful as a company, and they're there to make business easy for people. And they have been one of the most successful companies. But my own sense is that Alibaba is not a stable growth company for the medium term. And I think over the next 2, 3, 4 years, they're going to have significant issues. You know, companies like Tencent are very imaginative. They've moved into gaming. And also a number of companies are stronger than Alibaba in the mobile space. So I think what's going to happen is Alibaba is going to come under tremendous pressure. And my own view is that I think in the end, Jack Ma will step back in. I think he'll look at the situation and he can't help himself but step back in because he's a missionary CEO. He's fiery. He's got a view about success. And I think in the end, we're going to have a Jack Ma too. We'll come back to Alibaba and step back in again.
Well,
and I think this will create a big reaction in China and the rest of the world when it happens.
And you're saying he's going to have to contravene his own advice and in his later years actually come back in and take the reins again.
Exactly. I think he has to go back to his 40s again to do that.
And do you think he's going to prevail? Do you think he's still got it?
It's a good question. I think he's been a wonderful leader. I think he has got a great entrepreneurial philosophies. I just wonder in the next decade whether we're going to need people who are more about exponential leadership, who are more innovators and more pioneering. And I think we're going to need this globally. So I think it would be a challenge for him to be as successful as he has been in the last decade, in the next decade.
You're used to advising some of the biggest names in China. If a young businessman, young businesswoman could have a chat with you and just ahead of setting up their own business, what's the key bit of advice you would give them in a very quick discussion over a coffee, for example?
Yeah, my sense is there's 4 parts that a CEO would want to be able to cover and be successful. The first part is they've got to be able to have a North Star into the future. So not a normal vision and a mission, but a North Star that's exciting, that's pioneering, that could sort of triple or quadruple the value of the company. Secondly, they've got to have the ability to manage a business intensely in the short term and deliver short-term results, so they never miss their targets and lose their role. Thirdly, they actually got to manage their stress. Many CEOs are stressed out, but 80% of them are completely stressed. So you have to be able to sort of manage your passion and also your emotional side. Many CEOs lack emotional intelligence, The average CEO emotional intelligence is 12 emotions a day, where the average for a human being is up to 32,000. So a lot of CEOs have got a lot of work to do at the emotional side. And the fourth and final piece is I think CEOs have to learn that not to do everything themselves. They need to step out and build fellowships of trusted people, where a group of people they can really trust and believe and support them can build a business together.
That's great.
And I think if an entrepreneur can do those four things, then they'll be potentially very successful.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Steve Tappin there, advisor to top CEOs in China. Well, that is all the time we have for this week. Remember, you can see this episode and all our others on our YouTube channel. Well, that's it. I'll see you next week, and thank you for watching.